Good morning, good evening. Welcome back to For the Lonely Nights. I'm Paul Kim. And it's been a while since I've did one of these podcasts. And honestly, don't expect too much from this one either. This is not going to be a regular podcast. It's more going to be like a drunk talk of sorts, you know? I'm just going to be rambling on about something that kind of passed through my mind earlier today. And to give a little backstory about, how all of this came to be, recently I've been going through a phase. And, people always have their phases, whether it be a Minecraft phase or a Marvel phase or, a buzz cut phase, whatever it is. Everyone has their own phases that come and go throughout their life. And recently I've been going through like a revamped Pokemon phase. And so, I've been, I downloaded Pokemon Go on my phone. I got the new game, Pokemon Sword and Shield, for my Switch. And when I say new, Pokemon Sword and Shield isn't technically new. It came out over like a year ago, but it is the most recent one in the main Pokemon game series. So, so I got that for my Switch, and I've been playing it, whenever I have free time. And honestly, I've been having so much fun with it. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was, so earlier today I was playing my Pokemon game, and I just all of a sudden got this thought in my head, this question of, dang, how do these Pokeballs work? What is the scientific explanation behind this thing called the Pokeball? And so, to kind of elaborate on all of these things, I actually made just a very simple, very quick PowerPoint presentation to, just kind of organize and present my thoughts in a professional manner. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch over. If you're watching on YouTube, you should be able to see these slides. If you're listening on Spotify or any other platform, you could follow along. But honestly, just hop over to YouTube and for this next portion. All right, so I hope you guys can see this right here. Like I said, I whipped this up in about 5 to 10 minutes. So it's just something I did very quickly. So don't judge about how it looks. I did try to make it at least a little bit presentable, but just mainly it's just here to help me clearly illustrate my points and arguments. Let's get started. So this is going to be my Pokemon rant, the mystery of our generation, the scientific wonder, and the catch of the day, if you guys get that, the Pokeball, right? And this is, of course, by your host, Paul Kim. Honestly, I don't even know why the Pokeball is so small compared to everything else, because that's the main thing that we're talking about. But let's go on. So this is gonna be our daily agenda. We're gonna be going over 3 main questions in this presentation today. And the first question is, what is a Pokeball? The second question is, how does the Pokeball work? This is going to be where the main chunk of our argument lies. And the third and final question is the Pokeball ethical? We're going to be discussing the ethics behind the Pokeball. And before we go any further, I know you guys are wondering, what really makes you qualified to talk about this topic? What makes For the Lonely Nights host Paul Kim, why should we listen to him? Well, these are a list of my credentials, some of my credentials that I've gathered over the years. I've played a lot of Pokemon games growing up. I played Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. I played all 3 of those. I played Pokemon Diamond, and I played Platinum. I played Pokemon Heart Gold. I've also played Fire Red and Leaf Green. I am currently in the process of playing Pokemon Shield. I have read the Pokemon Adventures manga. from the adventures of Red to Yellow. And yeah, I've watched the Pokemon animated show all the way up to the Unova region. And I've also am the proud owner of a Pokemon stats book where it shows all of the Pokemon's battle stats, evolutionary lines, what level they learn certain things, natures. It has everything in it. And it shows the data of Pokemon, every Pokemon up into the Sinnoh region. And I, am a proud a trainer and a champion of Pokemon Showdown. If you don't know what that is, that's like one of the biggest online Pokemon battling sites. And I also, used to watch a lot of Pokemon analytical videos. And some notable mentions as well is, although I didn't play these ones personally, I did watch the videos walking through, Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Black, White, Black 2 and White 2, and Pokemon X and Y. I also watched the Pokemon Pokken tournaments and Pokemon Coliseum. So as you can see, I'm very qualified. I'm pretty much an expert and a professional on Pokemon. And everything I say will most likely be true. All right, so the first question, what is a Pokeball? Let's start with the basics. Let's lay down some foundations. Let's do some conceptualization here. So the direct definition taken from the official Pokemon website is a Pokeball, sometimes spelled a Pokeball without a space. It is both singular and plural. Is a round device used in the Pokemon series to catch and contain Pokemon. So, pretty much in this Pokemon world, the whole point is that there are a bunch of wild Pokemon, and your job as a trainer is to go out and catch as many different types of Pokemon as you can using what we call the Pokeball. And the Pokeball is basically this very round sphere that is big enough for you to throw. It has some weight to it, but it's also small enough that you can hold with one hand comfortably. And you could refer to the pictures on the right to see, exactly what a Pokeball looks like. Some things that, I definitely have to mention is, first and foremost, the Pokeball is a scientific innovation. If you look at figure 1 there, you could see that there's metal platings, there's some wires, there's some lights, that's the inside of a Pokeball. And so Pokeballs are something that has been developed and improved on over the years. It is purely technological. It is not the result of any magic or ancient powers or anything. This is just science at its finest. There are also different types of Pokeball. So if you look at figure 2 there's different types of Pokeball with different designs and different little traits to them. And each one of these different types of Pokeball have a special unique property to them that makes them stand out from the rest. For example, a dive ball is a Pokeball that is made to work better on Pokemon that are underwater. A love ball is a Pokeball that is made to work better on Pokemon that are of the opposite gender, and so on and so forth. Each Pokeball has their own unique trait, and the most basic of all the Pokeballs, the regular Pokeball has just a red, it's just red on the top and white on the bottom, as you could see in figure 1 right there. That is the regular Pokeball. And also some other notable features of this Pokeball is, you see its comfortable size. Like I said, it is just the perfect size for you to be able to hold in one hand, no bigger than a fist. And it's very sleek design. It is a very smooth sphere. I know some other different types of Pokeballs have some little bumps and things like that, but all in all, it is designed so for your comfort. Another notable function is the shrink function, what I like to call shrink tier 2. And basically what shrink tier 2 is that, like I said, the Pokeball is the size, of like a fist, a little bigger than a fist, but the Pokeballs also come equipped with this function that when you press the button in the middle of the Pokeball, it can even actually shrink further into the size of a large pebble. And this design is mainly there so that trainers can carry around Pokeballs with more comfort and more ease. The smaller they are, the easier they are to carry around, and therefore That's what I like to call the shrink tier 2. You're shrinking it even further down. Now, the final notable feature I like to mention is just the red beams that the Pokeball kind of emits and also absorbs. I will explain more of this later, but the red beams, and this is later changed to white with the addition of flashy effects and stars, as you could see in figure 4. So if you look at figure 3 right there, the Pokeball, it is shown that when you throw it at a Pokemon, the Pokemon turns into this series of red beams and gets pretty much sucked into the inside of the Pokeball where they are captured and contained. All right, so like I said, the Pokeball is pretty much one of the foundations and the basis of this Pokemon world. Now, let us dissect, the functions and the wonders of this Pokeball. So how does the Pokeball actually work? And this is a question for the generations. This is a question dating back all the way to the ancient times, I'm sure. But doing a lot of research and looking into things, and from my own personal experience, I've narrowed it down to two possible explanations, two possible theories that can explain the wonders and the scientific explanation behind a Pokeball. And so these are the two theories right here. The first of the theories is called the Shrunken Theory. And this theory pretty much states that the Pokeball utilizes some form of shrinking technology to shrink the Pokemon to an appropriate size that can eventually fit inside the Pokeball. And I'll explain more of that later. So, if you're a little confused, don't worry. Now, the second possible theory is what I like to call the Beam Me Up Scotty theory, or the BMUS theory. And what the Beam Me Up Scotty theory states is that the Pokeball utilizes some form of transporting or transmuting technology to move the Pokemon to another dimension or space, what I like to call the other world. And this is even more confusing, so don't worry, I'll definitely explain more of this later as well. But just the important thing to remember here is that for the Shrunken Theory, we're pretty much basically inferring that the Pokemon are physically contained inside the Pokeball. And for the BMUS Theory, we're inferring that the Pokemon are not physically contained inside the Pokeball and only transported through it. All right, so first and foremost, going over the Shrunken Theory, and going over this theory, like I said, that this theory kind of states that Pokemon are shrunk to fit inside and be contained physically inside the Pokeball. And so that kind of begs the question, how big is the inside of a Pokeball, and what exactly is inside? What exactly is inside of this Pokeball? And so, looking kind of, you could spectate. A lot of people have spectated that inside the Pokeball there is the natural landscape that the Pokemon usually lives in. So if it's a grass Pokemon, there's grassy lands and there's trees and forests inside the Pokeball to fit with the Pokemon's type. Other people say maybe it's just like a small room, or maybe it's I don't know. The theories go on and on. As you can see in the pictures right there, on the top two pictures, people theorize that there's maybe like a barbecue grill inside Charmander's Pokeball, or Pikachu has his own little room right there with a GameCube and everything. And these are all very notable theories, but so I did some, further research, because you can't just live off of theories. And so to gather some evidence, I looked back way upon the original Pokemon Adventures manga series, which, this was released when I was a child, and I'm talking about the very first books released on the adventures of Red. And in these Pokemon Adventures manga, as you can see in the panel on the very bottom, it pretty much shows us a transparent view of what is going on inside of Pokeball, and as we can see, in the Bulbasaur and the Poliwhirl there, that inside of Pokeball is basically just the Pokemon itself. There's nothing else that we can see, and it also seems like there's only enough space in the Pokeball, or likewise the Pokemon are only shrunk down to a size where they could just barely fit inside the Pokeball. And going further into the later panels of the chapter, we also get another transparent look inside these Pokeballs, and we see that these Pokemon, they have some sort of kind of dazed, hypnotized look in their eyes. They aren't showing much emotion while they're inside the Pokeball. They aren't showing much movement either. So we can kind of infer that while these Pokemon are inside these Pokeballs, they are in some form of semi-hypnotic state. We could also kind of compare that to kind of like a semi-coma state, and so that'll come into play a little later as well, but that's just kind of what we can infer it as using this manga panel. And we can also see through this manga panel that the Pokemon are all shrunk down to the same size regardless of their original physical size or nature. So as we can see in the bottom comic panel, that Bulbasaur and Poliwhirl, they are the same size inside the Pokeball. But as we know, in their real nature, when they are not inside the Pokeball, when they're out in the real Pokemon world, Poliwhirl and Bulbasaur are different sizes. Bulbasaur is much smaller than a Poliwhirl physically. And they're in the Pokemon world with these countless different types of Pokemon. All of these Pokemon are different shapes and sizes. We have Pokemon that are very small, like the cutie fly, which is pretty much the size of a large fly. And we have Pokemon like the Onix, who is this giant boulder stone looking monster who is, huge. It towers over the regular human. And so we have Pokemon that are all sorts of different sizes and shapes, and yet inside the Pokeball, as we see with the transparency in these manga panels, when they are inside the Pokeball, they are all the same size or shrunken down to the same size. So what does all of this say? All of this kind of says, that if this Shrunken Theory is definitely the actual, what is actually going on, then we can also infer that each Pokeball can only be registered to a single Pokemon. So, as we see, since the Pokemon are physically contained inside each Pokeball, the Pokeball is pretty much their home. It is registered under that certain Pokemon's name. And so far, we have not seen a case where multiple Pokemon share the same Pokeball. It's always been one Pokemon to one Pokeball. Now, so to further explain, this Shrunken Theory and to support this evidence, I actually looked outside of the Pokemon universe and actually looked into other scientific television series and worlds and universes to help explain, the science behind the Shrunken Theory. And one of the main things that I found that really helps support this theory and serves as a solid piece of evidence is from the TV show Doctor Who. And if you guys aren't familiar with Doctor Who, I used to go through a huge Doctor Who phase back a couple years back. I used to be a huge Doctor Who fan. I used to watch all the episodes. I was pretty obsessed. But Doctor Who is pretty much a British TV show about this person called the Doctor, who is a Time Lord, and he just kind of goes through adventures in time and space, and things like that, and crazy things happen. But so we're going to look at the Doctor Who series all the way from 1963 to 1989, plus the revamped version from the 2005 to the present. And the one thing I want to mention, that from this Doctor Who universe that really helps support the Shrunken Theory is the TARDIS. And if you guys don't know, the TARDIS is arguably the most recognizable thing from Doctor Who. It is the TARDIS pretty much stands for time and relative dimensions in space, and it pretty much is this Doctor's spaceship that he uses to travel through time and travel through space. And the cool thing about TARDIS, that is just so fascinating, is that on the outside, the TARDIS looks like a regular police phone box. We don't see too many of these days, but back then, these things were everywhere. The police phone box where you can go in, make a call to the police, I'm guessing, and things like that. And the police phone box, these were only big enough to fit maybe one or maybe two people max, inside at a time. They were very cramped spaces. But the cool thing about the TARDIS is that although the outside is very small, right, and very compact, the moment that you walk in through those doors, the inside, it feels like you're inside of a giant spaceship, as you can see in that picture right there, the second picture next to the police box. That's what the inside of the TARDIS looks like. It's a giant spaceship, and it continues on and on. And so, that's the whole thing about the TARDIS, is that it's bigger on the inside. And so, what does this say? What does the TARDIS explain? So if we are considering, the Shrunken Theory and that Pokemon are physically located inside each Pokeball, then, obviously we wonder, how can these Pokemon just stay inside such a cramped space? The semi-hypnotic state can also, can kind of explain, how the Pokemon managed to stay in there for a certain amount of time. But we can also kind of, predict and also kind of, humor the idea that maybe inside the Pokeball is this bigger and vast world that we really don't get to see, that that the Pokeball is actually bigger on the inside than the outside may seem, just like the TARDIS. And so when the Pokemon are contained inside the Pokeball, they're not in some claustrophobic room. They are actually in this bigger room, bigger facility, bigger house, or whatever it is, where they can go about their daily lives without being restrained of their movements, or even restrained of their consciousness. And you could see in that final picture down there of the Pikachu, that's kind of that's like a very similar visual of what I was going for. Imagine there's a whole landscape, or a whole an area inside the Pokeball that the Pokemon can run free in. Now, that's all said and done. It seems like, hey, why even go further on into the next theory? It seems like the Shrunken Theory is a very solid theory, and it seems like it's also very plausible. Well, let me go through the BMUS Theory. Hold your horses, because this one is actually very fascinating too. I get a drink of water. But yeah, so the BMUS Theory, like I said, this theory kind of states that the Pokeball uses some form of transporting or transmuting technology to move the Pokemon from point A to point B, point B, what I call the other world. And like I said, this theory pretty much infers that the Pokemon are not physically contained in the Pokeball, and the Pokeball is only pretty much acting as a catalyst to transport these Pokemon from the real world to this other world and back. So, that obviously goes to say the main question would be then, what is this other world? What is this other world that you speak of? And to further explain this and to further conceptualize this, I also, looked outside of the Pokemon universe and took examples from other franchises, just like Doctor Who. And for this one, I looked into the franchise of Star Trek. And if you guys aren't familiar with Star Trek, think of Star Wars, but with more spaceships and lasers. But I'm going to look at the Star Trek original series from 1966 to 1969, and also the movie franchises from 79 to 2002, also including the most recent franchises with the new cast and everything. But what I really wanted to look at in these Star Trek franchises is the function of the transporter. And if you don't know what the transporter is, it's one of the main functions of the Star Trek spaceship, where the crewmates of the starship can stand in this little room with these little light pods, and basically they get beamed down and teleported into whatever planet below. So let's say their spaceship, they're hovering above a random planet, they would go in these pods and then they would be automatically beamed down and transported into the surface of the planet. And you could also use this the other way up to beam them back into the spaceship as well. And so, why is this important? Why is a transporter important? Is, the transporter shows that this kind of technology is actually possible scientifically. It is very possible to transport a living thing from point A to point B using some sort of transporting or teleportation technology. And I believe this is very similar to what the technology that is in the Pokemon universe. That these Pokeballs are harnessing, according to the BMUS theory. And this transporter, it isn't it's only acting as the middleman from point A to point B. There's no instance where these crewmates are stuck inside whatever transporting loop in space or whatever it is. And yeah, so like I said, this just further serves as the evidence for the technology exists. And I would also like to take a look at just the world of Hunter x Hunter. If you guys aren't familiar with Hunter x Hunter, it's an anime, one of the most popular animes. And honestly, check it out. It's definitely worth your time. But so I'm going to be looking at the original anime from 1999 to 2001 and also the revamped from 2011 to 2014, especially the Chimera Ant arc. And so what I want to look at from this world of Hunter x Hunter is this particular hunter named Nav. He was part of the Chimera Ants extermination group. And in this world of Hunter x Hunter, every hunter pretty much has like a own unique special ability, and it goes into detail with this whole kind of like Nen and where these abilities come from, but I'm not going to go into that. But pretty much this Nav's special ability is called hide and seek. As you see in the pictures right there, that's Nav, and this is his ability. Pretty much what he can do is he can create these gateways or these portals on any surface that if you go through them, it kind of you are transported into this alternate dimension or space created by Nav, and pretty much that exists in its own kind of dimension, its own space apart from reality. So as you can see in that bottom picture right there, that's pretty much what Nav's hide and seek looked like. It's like pretty much a square building with a bunch of different rooms, and this is pretty much Nav can store things in this room. He can bring other people and other living creatures in here. He can pass in and out from the real world to this world as long as he uses portals. And so why is this important? Why bring anime into this? Because Nav's hide and seek kind of helps us conceptualize what these Pokeballs are actually doing and what the other world actually is. The transporter from Star Trek, it shows us that it is possible to get to point A from point B, but this Nav's hide and seek from Hunter x Hunter shows us that the point B is not actually a physical location in the real world, but it is actually a space within an alternate dimension or reality. It is not part of this real world. It is its own kind of relative space that you can pass through in and out. And so you're not going to find this other world by traveling around this real world, because it is not part of this real world. It is its own separate dimension. So I hope you guys, I hope this kind of helps you guys put into conceptualize what this other world kind of, exactly is. Now, once we've established, what this other world is, it begs the question, so are there individual other worlds for each individual Pokemon, or is it just one big shared world where the Pokemon can interact with one another and see one another and play with one another until they are called out? And if that is the case, if it is one shared world where all of the Pokemon from, let's say, one trainer, all the Pokemon that this single trainer catches are all sent to this shared other world, how does the Pokeball know how to pull out a specific Pokemon? And this would go into the whole Pokeball registering system, which would kind of explain how every time you use a certain Pokeball to catch a Pokemon, the Pokeball would register the data or the DNA or whatever of the Pokemon, and would be imprinted on that Pokeball, so that the Pokeball knows that when the trainer wants that specific Pokemon, let's say the trainer wants Squirtle to come out in battle, the Pokeball with the Squirtle registered to it would pretty much act to suck Squirtle out of the other world, and only Squirtle, so that he can come out into the real world and battle and whatever it is. So pretty much each Pokeball would just be acting as an individual respective gate or portal for each individual Pokemon. And one of the most interesting piece of evidence that also support the BMUS theory would be just the fact that in just all of the generations of Pokemon and the shows and the mangas and in the games, up until the most recent one, but I'll explain that later, different sized Pokemon, there are different sized Pokemon, like I said, there is the Onix, which is huge, and the Cutiefly that is small, and yet we only see a one-sized Pokeball, and that that's very confusing. You would assume that bigger Pokemon require bigger Pokeballs, right? But no, the Pokeball is the same size no matter the type of Pokeball. It is relatively all the same size, and they're all and that size is like a one size fits all. It's used to capture every Pokemon regardless of the Pokemon's physical size. And so this kind of goes to show that, since the Pokeball itself isn't changing, the Pokeball size isn't changing, it's not actually acting as, a physical place to contain the Pokemon. It's more so acting like just something that Pokemon pass through, so like you would expect, a bigger person to require a bigger bed. But just like some form of, let's say, in modern technology, even if you have terabytes of information, all you really need is, a microchip or something to be able to transport it to one place to another. So if it is, acting as like this catalyst, or, as like a digital some sort of transporter or storage or whatever it is, it is more understandable that the Pokeballs are all the same size, instead of becoming a physical I'm just repeating the same thing I said, but yeah, you get the idea. This pretty much says that the BMUS theory is the more plausible one, and just acts as a transporter to the other world. Now, you may not be convinced, that this BMUS theory is actually, the more plausible theory. You might say, oh, you're kind of reaching there. This is kind of just very conceptual. This is very abstract. How do we know that this is really what the science behind the Pokeball? And that's just a picture right there of what I would assume goes inside a Pokeball. But and I understand, it's very hard to kind of conceptualize and understand this BMUS theory. And so what I did was I wanted to kind of illustrate this for you. So on the screen, you see two things. You see, like I mentioned, the beaming technology from Star Trek, and you see that in like UFOs and flying saucers and things like that, where they just beam up people. And on the right there, on the bottom, you see Nav's ability hide and seek. This is what he does. He touches a surface and he opens a portal and a gateway to his alternate dimension reality. So these are the two things, the two supporting evidences I talked about of the BMUS theory. Now, why is this important? Well, let's take these two pictures, for example, and let's flip those both, rotate them 90 degrees, just like that. All right. What do you see? You might not see much just now, you still see the spaceship, you still see Nav's ability just sideways. Now, watch and see what happens. There we go. Coincidence? I think not. I'll show you one more time. Pay close attention to the circles. The circles are the most important part where the beam is coming out. I rest my case. Look at that. this is not a coincidence. This is not magic. This is not, me manipulating the size of the photo so it fits. This is concrete evidence right here that shows, that, dang, this BMUS theory, it pretty much it proves, the science behind these Pokeballs. These Pokeballs utilize the Star Trek and Nova abilities to pretty much act and transport these Pokemon from point A to the other world. And so then you ask me, then why even consider the Shrunken Theory at all? If this BMUS theory is so solid and we have this kind of Illuminati kind of conspiracy proven and everything, why consider the Shrunken Theory? Well, that's what I thought too, until this BMUS theory was what I thought to be the leading theory and the most possible theory up until the latest generation. But then this latest generation changed everything with the introduction of Dynamax. So if you guys don't know what Dynamax and Gigantamax is, pretty much this is what was introduced in the newest generation of the main Pokemon series, Pokemon Sword and Shield. And pretty much the basis of Dynamax and Gigantamax is that Pokemon are just imbued with some sort of power or ability that makes them ginormous, that makes them huge physically. As you can see in these photos, the photo on the right, that Wartortle is towering over the humans and the regular Pokemon. And the photo on the left, that's the photo of the Gigantamax. It also has this power to manipulate and make the Pokemon look a little funky too. And so why is Dynamax and Gigantamax so important? Why does this shake up the reality of the BMUS theory? Well, let me show you. So one of the most evidences supporting the BMUS theory is that there are the same size Pokeballs for different size Pokemon. And so that goes to show that the Pokeballs don't physically contain the Pokemon, but just act to transport them. But with the introduction of the Dynamax and Gigantamax system, we are also introduced to a new type of Pokeball, specialized for the Dynamax. And as we can see in that picture on the left, because to capture these Dynamax Pokemon, these abnormally large Pokemon, you can't capture these Pokemon using a regular Pokeball. You would have to use what we call the Dynamax Pokeball, which is a special Pokeball designed to catch these abnormally large creatures. And as you can see in that picture, these Pokeballs are actually fairly large themselves. These Pokeballs are large enough that the character has to hold it with both hands and chuck it over the head for it to fly to the Pokemon and capture these Dynamax Pokemon. Now, so why is this important? This kind of shows, this new generation actually shows that in the Pokemon world and in the Pokemon universe, different sized Pokeballs exist. And that's just the whole premise of the Shrunken Theory is that, since the Pokeballs are actually physically containing the Pokemon, different abnormally large Pokemon would require an abnormally large Pokeball. And this Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokeball shows that, it shows that these abnormally large Pokeballs have to be contained in a specialized larger Pokeball. And this isn't even anything fairly new or groundbreaking, because I actually did even further research and went through, every episode of the Pokemon animated show, and I found another concrete evidence, planted way back then, way back in the years, kind of alluding to this Dynamax Pokeball, this specialized Pokeball. And so if you look at the Pokemon animated show Season 8, Episode 12, titled Claydol Big and Tall, the whole premise of the episode is that Ash and his friends go to this island, and there is this giant Claydol. If you don't know what a Claydol is, it's that black looking dumpling right there with eyes all around it. This giant Claydol, which is abnormally larger than what a regular Claydol is supposed to be, this Claydol has been walking around and creating havoc and destruction, and the people can't catch it because it's so big. It doesn't fit inside a regular Pokeball. And so Ash and his friends has to use this giant stone Pokeball, as you can see on that picture on the top right, they have to roll down this giant stone Pokeball down a hill so that it can be flung onto the Claydol and eventually capture and contain this large Claydol. And so these two right here, the Dynamax Pokeball and this stone Pokeball, it goes to show that different size Pokeballs do exist in the Pokemon universe for different sized Pokemon. And so this kind of this shakes up the whole premise. One of the pillars of the BMUS theory is that maybe, oh shoot, since these larger Pokeballs are used for larger Pokemon, maybe it is actually the science behind the Pokeball to actually contain the Pokemon physically within it. It would make sense, right, on paper. And so with the introduction of these Pokeballs, it pretty much proves that it is not the BMUS theory and it's actually the Shrunken Theory that is the most plausible and probably the real theory behind the Pokeball. And so, is this the end of the presentation? Is this all I have to say? Well, any regular Pokemon analyst and any other regular research scientist would pretty much conclude right here that with the findings available, that the Shrunken Theory is actually the better theory, and would leave it at that. But I'm For the Lonely Nights, your host Paul Kim, never does anything half-heartedly. He always goes above and beyond the required call to bring you guys the best content. And so what I did was I even took it a step further and did even more research to come up with one final argument for the BMUS theory to kind of establish that the BMUS theory is actually the more plausible theory. And all of this comes down to one thing. That one thing being storage. Let me get a drink of water. I'm sorry. All right, let's do this. So, why is storage the determining factor? Why is storage the thing that pretty much makes or breaks one of these two theories? And so let me explain. And to understand this concept of storage, we gotta look into the Pokemon games and the show to understand this very subtle and this very kind of hidden gem that a lot of people would naturally pass over. But I of course had the eagle eyes and I spotted this out, and this is a thing called the Pokécomp, the Pokemon Box System Computer. And if you don't know what a Pokécomp is, in every one of the Pokemon games and the show, if you go to a Poké Center or some other facility, there is this computer that you can find. If you see on the top picture right there, I circled it in red. That's the computer I'm talking about. In every Pokemon Center, has at least one of these. And when you log into this Pokécomp, you can use the Pokécomp to store, trade, or transfer Pokemon, from the lab and back. So let me explain. So, if you take a look at that second photo right there in the middle where that blue arrow is pointing to, that is pretty much what the Pokécomp looks like, the storage boxes inside the Pokécomp. And so the basic science behind this is that the job of these Pokemon trainers is to go out and catch as many different types of Pokemon as they can to fill up their Pokedex. But the problem is they can only carry 6 Pokemon with them at a time. They can only carry up to 6 Pokemon in their party. And anything, any Pokemon capture that exceeds the 6 limit, the 6 limit restriction is sent to what you call, the Pokemon lab. And these Pokemon labs are headed by the different professors of each generation, such as Professor Oak, Professor Birch, and on and on. But basically, these excess Pokemon are transferred and stored in the Pokemon lab, and the trainers can use one of these Pokécomps to access and request these Pokemon that are stored in these labs to can access them back and can switch them out with one of their party Pokemon, and pretty much, to do whatever. But, that's just the basic idea behind this, is that everything past the 6 Pokemon you have with you currently are stored for later use in these Poké Labs, and you can access them through the Pokécomp. Now, so if these Pokemon are, being transferred to the Poké Lab, that begs the question, where do these transferred Pokemon go? And how are these Pokemon transferred? And so, if we look at the Shrunken Theory, right? If we say that the Shrunken Theory is the actual science behind the Pokeball, then we would, since the Pokeballs are physically containing each Pokemon, we can say and we can infer that the Pokeball itself would be pretty much considered a very physical asset. And what I mean by that is that you would require a large amount of physical storage and physical space to be able to store these Pokeballs, which contain Pokemon. And so, if you ever ordered something from Amazon, or if you mailed something out, let's say you were mailing this very fragile Tupperware set, to the other side of the country, you would stamp that fragile stamp on the box, and hopefully, the mailman would handle it very carefully so that the contents wouldn't break. They would probably, set it aside by itself. They would not avoid putting any heavy stuff on top of the box so that the contents of the box wouldn't get damaged, because this is very fragile stuff. And likewise, what is more fragile than life itself, living creatures, Pokemon? And so I would assume that when these Pokemon are being transferred from the trainer's possession to the lab and back, they would have to be carefully transferred over, and this would not be a very quick process. This would be this would take some time, and this would take this whole sort of infrastructure of delivery systems in the Pokemon world for this to be possible. Think of Amazon Prime, but on steroids. So, so for example, a Pokemon trainer would catch their 7th Pokemon, and so they would pretty much have to give their 7th Pokemon to one of these Poké Centers, and these Poké Centers would have to then give it to the delivery mailman, which would carry this Pokemon all the way to the Pokemon lab, where the Pokemon inside the Pokeball would be stored inside the lab until the trainer requests it back again at a future date. Now, what is the problem with this? What is the problem with this sort of physical storage idea? Is that, think of the Pokemon world. There are countless and, I would say almost unlimited amount of wild Pokemon wandering around this Pokemon world. And, if you consider all of the games, all of the shows, all of the mangas, there you can also say that there are countless amount of Pokemon trainers. There are thousands and thousands of Pokemon trainers out there right now capturing wild Pokemon. And if you ever play this game, you yourself as a trainer, you end up in your, let's say, first playthrough of the Pokemon game, you end up capturing a couple hundred Pokemon, in your adventure, just by yourself, just for yourself, and you're just one trainer. So imagine that times the thousands and thousands of trainers out there in the Pokemon world. All in all, that is an incomprehensible amount of Pokemon stored inside individual Pokeballs that these Pokemon labs have to store for each and every trainer. And so, I know I introduced the idea of, or the function of the shrink tier 2 in the very first couple slides, that these Pokeballs are able to shrink even further down to the size of a large pebble. And so wouldn't that make storage easier? Yeah, definitely it would. But that still, despite the fact that the Pokeballs can shrink down even further, that just considering the sheer amount of Pokeballs that these labs would have to store, it would just truly require a very implausible amount of physical space. And just even thinking about the whole sorting system and how they would even locate any of these single Pokemon to be able to deliver to the trainers, and I'm all the thousands of trainers requesting different Pokemons at different times. It's just such a mess and a headache to even think about there being a physical system. And so this pretty much is one of the biggest weaknesses of the Shrunken Theory, and this is actually one of the biggest advantages for the BMUS Theory. And how does that work exactly? So let me show you. So if we are to kind of look at the BMUS Theory and say that the Pokeballs doesn't actually physically contain Pokemon, that are just transporting or transmuting these Pokemon. So what do these Pokeballs actually transmute the Pokeballs to? And so, like I shared, in the first couple slides, one of the most notable features about the Pokeball is that when you throw it at a Pokemon, the Pokemon turns into this red clump of light, and it gets absorbed into the Pokeball. And at first that might seem like a very just like a subtle design choice. That might just seem like something that they put in the game to make it seem more appealing to the eyes. But that's what it looks on the surface. But if you dive even deeper and look into the underlying message of that, you can kind of infer that these Pokemon are being transmuted from a physical state into some form of ultraviolet, or some form of other state that is not physical, that is not their original state, and therefore being transmuted into something else. And so if we can infer that these Pokemon are in fact being transmuted, then we can also infer that these Pokemon are being transmuted into digital data. And what I mean by that is that the whole point of the Pokeball is not actually teleporting the physical Pokemon from point A to physically the other world. The other world is actually not a physical space, but a space within the digital world. Why'd I say it like that? The digital world. And so the Pokemon are actually being teleported in their physical state and transmuted into digital data and placed inside this digital other world. And that would explain so many things. It would solve this problem of physical storage because, as we know in this modern age, digital data is limitless. We can store digital data, terabytes and terabytes of digital information, all in a microchip, a micro SD card and things like that. Physical space doesn't become a problem anymore because digital data, there is arguably unlimited amount of storage and space in the digital world. And this would also increase the efficiency and accessibility of these Pokemon. Like I shared, the amount of physical infrastructure that would need to go into physical storage of these Pokeballs is just very unplausible. But if these are in fact digital data, then it would be as easy as just accessing your smartphone and sending a text through your smartphone. You would just go on your phone or one of these computers and say, you just click the option of I want my Squirtle back from the lab, and the Squirtle, since it is already in the digital data form, it would just almost instantaneously come back and be available to be transmuted back into the physical state. And you can almost access this almost everywhere. You don't even have to go to a Pokemon Center to turn in your Pokemon one by one. You can literally do this wherever you have internet access. And not only that, further evidence of why I think this is actually the case in the Pokemon world is that when we look at these Poké Centers, if you don't know what a Poké Center is, it's a play. In the Pokemon world, you're constantly battling other Pokemon with your own, and obviously your Pokemon are gonna get hurt sometimes, And so to heal your own Pokemon back up, you need to visit these Poké Centers, and they use these machines to pretty much heal and bring your Pokemon back to full health. Now, why is this important? Well, we see in the anime, one of the earlier episodes of the Pokemon show anime, Ash's Pikachu gets hurt. He gets very hurt by, this flock of sparrows, and is just pretty much on death's door. And so Ash, rushes it over to the nearby Poké Center, and Nurse Joy and all the other Clefairy nurses or whatever it is, they take the Pikachu, they physically take the Pikachu, and they pretty much operate on it physically. So they hook it up to wires, and they give it that little breathing mask thing that you see in the TV shows. They give it some syringes and things like that. So they physically operate and give it direct treatment on the Pikachu until it is nursed back to health. However, in the video games and even in the manga Pokemon Adventures, it is shown that is actually not the case, that it is not, Pokemon centers don't operate on direct treatment. Pokemon centers operate on machine treatment. And so what that machine treatment is you could see in the picture next to Nurse Joy, that little crib looking thing, and even on the very bottom picture you see that machine and 6 Pokeballs right there being healed up. So what these machine treatments do is Nurse Joy would put your 6 Pokeballs inside these machines, and the machine itself would heal the Pokemon back to full health while they're still, just in their Pokeball form. And so this would further prove that, if these were actually physical Pokemon contained within the Pokeballs, then, they probably wouldn't be able to be treated this way. They would physically have to be taken out and physically treated. But since they are pretty much what you would call digital data, this machine can pretty much access each digital data of each Pokeball, and therefore put in some form of code to pretty much heal these Pokemon back up, and almost in a matter of seconds, pretty much. And so, this goes to show that this is actually more advanced technology that is in the works, rather than, some sort of containment technology. It is actually a more advanced coding and digital technology that exists within the Pokemon world and behind these Pokeballs. And one final piece of evidence, if you weren't even convinced enough, that support this BMUS theory and this whole digital data theory, is with the introduction of the Pokemon Box Link system, also known as the PokéLink. And what this PokéLink is introduced. It was introduced in the most recent game, Pokemon Sword and Shield. And pretty much before, you had to always go to one of these buildings or Poké Centers to access the Pokécomp. But now, with the introduction of the PokéLink, you can access the Pokécomp wherever you are. You could be in a wild area, you could be at home, you could be in the bathroom taking a dump. It doesn't matter. You can access your storage Pokemon. You can trade, and you could transfer Pokemon right from where you are using your smartphone or whatever device you have. And so how does that work? That pretty much explains that there is no physical property in the works here. It is all digital data. If you can pretty much switch out one of your party Pokemon that you have with you in the moment to a different Pokemon that you have in the storage using your smartphone while you're in the middle of nowhere, then that pretty much proves that it is just a transfer of some form of data, and it is not actually the transfer of anything physical. So, where does this leave us? This, you pretty much, kind of explained that the BMUS theory is the right theory, Are you going to go back and give us even another, some sort of revelation that actually proves the Shrunken Theory is the right theory? Honestly, I probably could. Honestly, but like I said, this was just a fleeting thought in my mind earlier today, and I only spent like 5-10 minutes of work, researching and making this PowerPoint. So this is all I got for you right now. So all in all, whether you believe in the Shrunken Theory or the more supported and plausible BMUS theory, the question still remains, and this is our third and final question. Is the Pokeball ethical? What really is the ethics behind this scientific innovation called the Pokeball? And obviously there are always two sides of a coin, and you could argue the same for this one. People can say that, yeah, it is ethical. Pokeballs are ethical because Pokemon have control. Definitely the ethics lie on the question of if Pokemon have control within the Pokeball or not. And if we look at the games Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, there is a gym leader called Drayden who explains and implies that Pokemon are actually fully capable of leaving a trainer that they don't like, whether or not they've been captured in a Pokeball. And we can also see in the Pokemon animated series that there have been several cases where the Pokemon can actually release themselves out of their own Pokeball, out of their own accord and will. We see this in Misty's Psyduck, Jesse's Wobbuffet, Ash's Oshawott, the list goes on and on. There have been many cases where the Pokemon actually release themselves out without the command or the direction of their trainer. And so this would all goes to show that, yeah, Pokemon actually do have control when they're inside the Pokeball. It is not some form of, semi-hypnotic state that they're put in, it is not that, they're forcefully trapped and imprisoned inside this Pokeball, whether it be physically or whether it be through digital data. They're not just forcefully imprisoned there until the trainer decides to call them out. They have the free will to not only release themselves out, but also leave their trainer if they like it, if they want to or not. But then there's also the other side of the coin that argues, no, it's not ethical. Pokeballs are actually very unethical. And this would just argue into the fact that Pokemon actually do not have control when they are within the Pokeball. And this would go into show, Pokemon Adventures. It shows that the Pokemon are forced into a semi-hypnotic state, or, the BMUS Theory saying that they are transmuted into digital data. And, once you are transmuted into digital data, I would assume that the consciousness and, the awareness also follows with it, or, and is also, turned into data and is not actually there. So this would actually, bring up the question, are Pokemon aware? Are they aware when they are spending their time inside the Pokeball, whether it be physically or in data form? And, so these people who would say it's very unethical would argue that no, the Pokemon are actually not aware. Since they are putting to this semi-hypnotic or digital state, it is just very similar, resemblance of some form of coma. And these Pokemon would actually not remember anything that happened in that time. So the last thing that they would remember would be going inside the Pokeball. And the next thing they would remember would be coming out of it. They wouldn't know what the heck happened in between those two times, and they wouldn't even realize how much time has passed in between them going into the Pokeball and them coming out. And so this then also begs to question, what would happen then to the unfavored or forgotten Pokemon? Obviously, as a trainer catching countless amounts of Pokemon, but only being able to carry 6 at a time, the trainer naturally would choose 6 Pokemon that are the strongest and most useful to carry around and utilize, on a daily basis. And so where does this leave the other hundreds of other Pokemon who are, weaker and who are less useful, than those main Pokemon that the trainer favors? What happens to these unfavored Pokemon? And also, there have been many cases where, a trainer would catch a Pokemon and forget about it. What if the trainer leaves the Pokeball containing the Pokemon, drops it out of their car and it falls into a sewer? Or, what would happen if they just completely forgot that they even had this Pokemon in the first place, and it's just buried deep upon piles and piles of digital data? Then what would happen to these forgotten Pokemon? And so this would also lead into this whole discussion about, do Pokemon age when they're within the Pokeball? Is there some sort of technology that prevents them from aging? But if not, then, and if these Pokemon actually physically do age while they're inside the Pokeball, then would they just, these unfavored and forgotten Pokemon, would they just continue to just, grow older and rot away until they finally die inside the Pokeball without ever seeing the light of day again? And this is very similar to, like I said, an eternal slumber, eternal coma kind of state that you're forcing these Pokemon to go into. And and why is this a problem? This is a problem because we're not just dealing with, some form of objects or some form of code. We are dealing with living creatures. And Pokemon are arguably living creatures, and we would argue that this is very forced imprisonment, and, you could even go as far to say some form of slavery of these living creatures. And honestly, this is something that I never really got, to be honest. In this whole Pokemon universe, humans, are the ones that are controlling the Pokemon. Humans keep Pokemon as pets. But then again, if you think about it, all of these Pokemon, like each of them have some form of special power, whether it be, whether it be that they're like a giant whale, they could breathe out fire. Some Pokemon are exponentially times smarter than the smartest human. They could fly. They have all of these different powers, and I would say 99 times out of 100, if you pit a human against a Pokemon, and any Pokemon, the Pokemon would probably win. And so that just didn't make sense to me. Why are the humans the one enslaving the Pokemon when it should honestly be the other way around? But anyways, that's just a whole nother discussion in of itself. But like I said, going back, this would argue as a forceful imprisonment of living creatures, and it is also shown in the anime that these trainers can actually forcefully send the Pokemon in and out of the Pokeball, whether they be contained inside or digital data, like I said, they can forcefully bring them in and out against their own will. There was a scene in the show where, a Pokemon was battling, and the Pokemon wasn't doing very well. And so the trainer got mad and forcefully sent the Pokemon back into the Pokeball, regardless of the Pokemon's desire to continue to battle. And so this kind of proves that, trainers have the control here, using this technology called the Pokeball to forcefully send these Pokemon in and out, and arguably in and out of this eternal coma and slumber state. And so, all of this, going on, I often wonder, if the Pokemon in the Pokemon world, if such thing as like PETA exists in the Pokemon world. Honestly, if the Pokemon world was in the real world, dude, I'm sure PETA would be all over this, dude. They're definitely going to thrive here, they would bring up signs and do marches and all these kind of things. PETA for Pokemon, and things like that. Like, yeah, if you actually think about it, even the way that we treat our own dogs and cats in this real world, the treatment of Pokemon like this would definitely seem very unethical. And so, so you ask, yeah, there's arguments to both sides of the coin. So what do you think? After doing countless amounts of research, after spending years and years and having years and years of experience in this Pokemon realm, and after being a professional Pokemon trainer and a multi-time Pokemon champion, for the Lonely Nights host, Paul Kim, what is your opinion? Do you think the Pokeball is ethical? And, I think, honestly, the simple answer, no. The Pokeball isn't ethical. Like I said, I even question if Pokemon should be the ones being contained. I think it should be the other way around. But, honestly, like, whether it be the Shrunken Theory, where the Pokemon are contained inside the Pokeball, or the BMUS Theory, where they are transported and transmuted into some form of digital data in the other world, either way, it seems like a very unethical thing to me. And so, all in all, that's the end of my presentation. But, like I said, this was all just something that I thought of while playing my Pokemon game, and just a fleeting thought. I thought I'd share, because honestly, this is a very interesting thing, and I'm sure that as strong as the theories stand right now, with the release of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in late 2021, and with the release of Pokemon Legends Arceus in 2022, they'll probably introduce even more evidence that leads, that supports one theory or another, or even, completely just introduces a new theory, completely introduces something else. So that's something I'm looking forward to, and and when that happens, you can be sure I'll have another one of these Pokemon phases and Pokemon rants. But with that being said, I don't really have a Bible verse to end off this this one right here. I don't think it'd be appropriate even if I did. So until I see you again, have a great day. Go out there, catch some Pokemon. Always laugh, always smile, and yeah, just enjoy life as it is. So until I see you again, as always, all glory to God.